My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jaime Faria and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paulini and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
That noise you hear in the background, if you can indeed hear it, is coffee being made. Not that that's relevant whatsoever, Mario, to today's show, although I know you're a big fan of coffee, just as I am. Although probably, Mario, you're thinking 6 o'clock is a little bit late to be having a coffee?
Not truly. I mean, if it's
Okay.
just coffee, usually I
It is.
don't like it with milk later in the day, like
Yes.
cappuccino and all these
Yeah,
things. I prefer these things in kind of early
in the morning.
morning, but just coffee,
Agree.
it's fine.
Great. Thank you. I'm glad I've got your permission. I will proceed now with the tennis. I mean, I think we have to begin by, at least for a minute or two, reflecting on Mirra Andreeva's win last night against Iga Swiatek. I think it's probably, I mean, I said this on the stream last night, I think it's probably the second biggest sort of tennis story of the year, maybe, or am I getting too carried away?
Probably. Yeah, I mean, of course, we know, which story is, of course, the first one, because,
Yeah,
of course, we had I think you're talking about the Australian Open and Madison Keys. It's a
definitely.
major success.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. I kind of thinking more than just yesterday's win, but just like how Andreeva has started playing since the tournament in Dubai, especially because we knew that she was a fantastic player and a fantastic talent who was going to shine very soon, but the beginning of the year was a little bit shaky. From here, she had some ups and downs. So nothing, everything just started clicking. And despite the change of continents, conditions, nothing, even, winning her first big title, a 1000 event in Dubai, nothing let her, down in Indian Wells. She just played as as good as she could. And yeah, yesterday's win is amazing for me, even better than in Dubai against Iga, because we know Indian Wells is a great tournament for Swiatek. Also, the way Iga was playing so far in the tournament, the way she was dominating the all her matches, also against some very good opponents like Karolina Mukova. So and also because it's been a closer one than the one in Dubai, also losing the second set that way and then immediately regrouping to to start incredibly well the third set and then getting the win. For sure, she's showing a fantastic maturity. It's definitely uncommon for a 17-year-old to just be so poised and to to overcome challenges, both, in the season, mid-tournament, but also in the single match and against such opponents like Iga Swiatek that, despite not having had the strongest year possible for her standards, she's still, winning a lot of matches, of course. So
I do have a
it's
question,
really,
Mario,
yeah.
about Iga. And we are here, of course, to talk about tomorrow's final, and we'll certainly talk about Andreeva's route to the final, because just looking at it, it's crazy in a way. But just quickly on Iga, no singles final, at least, since the Roland Garros French Open. So we're probably, because I think Miami might be tough for her, we may well go an entire non-clay court season without a final. Now, the question is, Mario, and you could probably guess the question is, reasons for concern or no big deal right now?
For sure, yes, in my opinion, because it's of course uncommon, for a player like that to not play finals. I don't want to say with regularity, but at least a couple here and there. In we've seen also, for example, to make a comparison, when I don't know, Carlos Alcaraz has had a couple of months that were not as brilliant as we have seen in playing, but still at times still reaching, going deep in a tournament and reaching the final here and there. So yeah, it's for sure kind of weird to see her not not going this deep, meaning reaching the finals in tournaments, because as going deep, she's done it. Let's say Australian Open semi-final. For me, the most important thing is that she has still shown that there is the level to reach the final, because when you are 1 point away from the Australian Open semi-final, the level is kind of there. But and this is for me the weirdest thing and probably most concerning about their game. She slows down a little bit in the pressure moments and when things gets tight, and it's a bit uncommon to see her doing this, because yes, we have known her for being also a very dominant player, capable of giving astonishing score lines to her opponents, but she also was known to be kind of a clutch player. For example, I know it's Clay's favorite tournament, but still the French Open against Osaka, most of us probably were thinking, okay, probably she's going to lose here, or against the final against Sabalenka last year in Madrid. And other times it happened also on hard courts for her to be very good in pressure moments, and this hasn't been the case recently. So probably probably this is the most concerning things, rather than just being in the final. You win a second set that way against Andreeva, as good as Andreeva is, also in that first set, the way it ended in the tiebreak against Keys, she could have played better in some circumstances. Then, I mean, of course, Keys' storyline completely, overwhelmed our thoughts about Tiga's performance, or Aryna in the final as well. But yeah, for me, the most concerning thing is this one, that she's been, I think, kind of unclutch in some pressure moments in these matches, like these semifinals, a bit here, and especially at the Australian Open. And, it happened quite a few times.
Agree. I think I won't dwell too much on Iga now, because obviously I want to move forward with this conversation. But I will both address what Jake's asking in the chat and respond to what you've just said. I think, first of all, the opponents mustn't be. I think that they've stepped up. Even Coco, I know she's had a rough 6 weeks, if you like. But if we think about Coco before that loss to Paula Badosa, she had certainly stepped up and was a more formidable opponent for Iga. And then, of course, she proved that as well in the United Cup. Also, we're looking at Mirra Andreeva now, has gone another huge step forward compared to where she was, 6 months ago, or even possibly 6 weeks ago. Sabalenka is not going anywhere. Rybakina's not quite back yet, but so I think the opponents, particularly in the form of Mirra Andreeva. But I agree with you that there's two other very tiny the points that you made that I'm going to re-emphasize, if you like, which is it's just 1 point perhaps in Australia, and she just makes the final there, and it's a big step forward, a bigger step than the semi-final is or was. And then you're right, I think a bit of confidence, which is going to get, it's going to get a vicious circle in a way. It's going to get worse every time she gets to sort of semi-finals and not quite getting over the line. So it's a bit of all of that. Finally, Jake, regarding moving forward on a hard court, I don't know, if I'm honest. I don't know if the coaching change is going to reap the rewards that she's obviously very keen to reap in terms of getting better on a hard court, but I don't see a big change in her game thus far on a hard court. It's not like she's doing drop shots all the time, Mario, or you know, she's serving bigger than ever before. I think her serve is better than it used to be, but yeah, I think really just confidence in those key moments that you mentioned. That's all I could possibly say on a hard court. A bit more variety would be great, but it's easy for us to say. I remember Tommy Paul, good friend of Mario's, slight exaggeration, people, but hopefully you get my point. I remember Tommy Paul being posed a question in Australia, I think, when he lost the semi-final. Why didn't you come to the net more? Well, you know, firstly, it's not his game. Secondly, Novak doesn't give you short balls, you know. So if Novak is going to do 3 hours of hitting the baseline, then you can't come to the net. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of things going on there, but I don't want to dwell too much on Mario. On Mario, I'm happy to dwell on Mario, but I'm not going to dwell on Iga now because I want to get back to Mirra's run to the final because I had to be reminded of just how tough it is. I mean, I'm going to say something now, and it might be a little bit carried away, but Mario, could it be more difficult, really, if you were thinking, who could we pick for an opponent forget matchups, just quality of opponent right now for the second for the round of 32? You'd probably go Clara Towson or somebody close to that. That would be as difficult as it's likely to be, right? At that level. And then same with Rybakina, maybe not Svitolina, but definitely Iga in the semi. So it's just an incredible run to the final and only losing one set to Iga. And the way she bounced back from that last night was also very impressive, right?
Oh, it's been a very tough run on paper, meaning that, but even Svitolina in quarterfinal, it's not as easy. Because Svitolina has also had a quite good Australian Open. She was in the quarterfinal. She really pushed the Madison Keys as well in that match. So, well, Towson playing incredible tennis, 3 games for her. Rybakina, she's not in the best moment, but she is in a former champion of this tournament, and she's still playing at a very solid level overall. And yeah, there Rybakina, of course, played a very, very bad match actually, but Andreeva, she just keeps doing what she has to do with, an incredible mindset, which I think is, of course, the most impressive thing about her, considering her age. Then, of course, all the things that she can do well on the tennis court, because she's an incredible, an incredibly complete player. She's able to hit with the ball with power, but also, of course, using slice, varying trajectories, and she's also very good tactically. I'm just impressed. Of course, I would say this tournament even more than in Dubai, because in Dubai it kind of felt, at least for me, despite her beating great opposition and Iga herself, but for me it kind of felt like, wow, this is, pieces are coming together this week already, but doing it a second 1,000 tournament in a row, and then it shows, a different thing, not just being able to, of course, to already pick at big tournament, but basically already being, able to be top 4-5 player consistently throughout the year. And the race is showing that. And now the race, especially on the women's side, because on the men's it's, just a second big tournament, but in the women's, this is already the third 1,000 tournament that has been a slam as well. So it's a race we can already look at it, with a critical eye. And so I would say, everything really impressive. And considering also that she has to play Sabalenka in the final, you cannot get any tougher,
No.
I think.
Let's talk about Sabalenka. Let's talk about her run to the final, which, I think it's fair to say that probably until, at least on paper, I didn't see her having too many problems until the Samsonova match. Before, I even predicted Samsonova to do the upset and beat Sabalenka. I sort of took a risk with that one and it didn't work. I just thought that Sabalenka's, her first round against Kessler was a challenge, I would say. But with Bonzetti and Cartal, I did very much think that Sabalenka would come through that relatively comfortably. She did deal with Samsonova much better than I expected. And then last night, Mario, I mean, wow.
Yeah, I was a bit shocked actually because I watched the
Yeah.
first match and not the second, because it was getting late. So I, woke up and saw the score, and so I definitely asked myself some questions at first, and then of course I looked into that one, and well, she looks on a mission. Yeah, of course, with a scoreline like that, there's always going to be two sides of the story, especially when it's a scoreline like that between two great players like Sabalenka and Keys. So, both things are for sure true. But yeah, overall, Sabalenka, is back in business mode after, tough Doha Dubai swing. It seems like these slow conditions suit their game really well because the ball flies a little bit higher, and she likes to play, to have that impact on the ball a little bit higher when she can kind of smash the ball with her, with her baseline shots. And doing so, of course, playing, not playing right away, the best possible opposition, even if Kessler is an informed player. And still there, even though 7-6, 6-3, I was kind of impressed because Sabalenka not conceded any break point in the match. Already gave me the idea that Sabalenka was, well focused and, could have found herself well on the court, and she showed it first against Bronzetti and Kartal, and then against tougher opposition in Samsonova and Keys. Regardless of the level, they have played, Sabalenka has shown a very strong level, and I think it was also what she needed, maybe to grow on confidence, to have this kind of, let's say, flawless run without any risk, without any issue. Definitely to get back that confidence in her game, to now approach the next match, which for sure is going to be the toughest one, because on paper, even Keys, but knowing how it's gone, for sure the final against Andreeva will be the toughest match. And yeah, it's gonna be very interesting because we know the matchup as you are showing the head-to-head. Andreeva has beaten Sabalenka in a slam. There was also some physical thing with Sabalenka that day. It's definitely a matchup that has troubled Andreeva a lot because, how tough it is, even for a very young player, to handle Sabalenka's hurricane on the court, especially if her tennis is spot on, is on fire. Everything that she throws at yourself, it's not easy to handle, especially because it can frustrate you a little bit, to kind of feeling like you're not in charge of much on the court, and it depends a little more on the opponent. But it will be interesting because Andreeva has kind of entered a new phase of her career now, and she's definitely more mature, more composed. So it's really intriguing for me as a match. I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too. Yes, me too. What I would say before I get back to the final itself is maybe not the result, because you'd never predict, love and one like that, but maybe that, win for Sabalenka.
Yeah.
Looking back, I do think that maybe I could have and should have seen that win coming, at least, because the first of all, I think Madison Keys been on this phenomenal run. Is it 15 matches in a row she won? 16, yeah. So sometimes I have seen these runs come to an end, and when they come to an end, they come to an end in a
brutally
not great way. It's not like they lose a 3-set, it's just like it just goes completely wrong one day, and it definitely did go badly wrong for Madison Keys yesterday. But the other thing that I started to think about, as soon as, I think midway through the second set, I started to think about that Australian Open final and how for 2 sets, I thought Sabalenka was a long way off her best for those first 2 sets. And yet we were in a third set, so we go into a third set in Australia, and I'm thinking, wow, Sabalenka in the first set was a long way from her best. Even the second set, which I know she won, But I didn't think that she was playing that well. I think Madison's, her level dipped a little bit in that second set as well, for sure. But then what surprised me about that Australian Open final was that Sabalenka rose. That didn't surprise me. But what surprised me is that Madison was able to go through that dip and then come back up again. So that sort of surprised me, because sometimes when the dip begins, it's very difficult to get that back again, if you like. So I was really, really impressed. But don't forget as well, she was serving to stay in the match, I think at 5-6, wasn't she, Aryna? And that was it. It was done like that match, because we were thinking, I think I was thinking, here we go, tie break. And when it goes to a tie break, I think Sabalenka's going to get the job done. She's probably the better player in terms of certainly pedigree, and she'd won 2 Australian Opens before, and blah, blah, blah. But of course, that game happens. Madison Keys, absolutely deserving of the title. No one was happier than the whole tennis world regarding that result, and certainly deserved the title just for the phenomenal tennis she'd played for the entire fortnight and the opponents that she'd come through. But still, probably of the two players, when things are kind of normal, Sabalenka wins that Australian Open final 7 times out of 10, maybe.
Yeah, I kind of agree. For me, the most impressive thing about that Australian Open final is that, for me, Sabalenka started playing quite well in the third set, and Keys was able to still go toe to toe with her, to raise her level as much as needed to stay in the match, because Sabalenka, I think, after the second set, which she won without, of course, as you said, looking at her best, she raised the level in the third, in my opinion, at least. Until the 5-game solve, she had the most opportunities also on Keys' serve, a couple of 30 situations. So yeah, that was phenomenal. But of course, we know that Sabalenka, I think, normal level to normal level, Sabalenka is the better player, and I think her career shows that, because when you win so many big titles as Sabalenka, because she has won 3 Grand Slams title, been in 5 finals, 7 1000 titles. So, she has a big palmarès, which, of course, we have to read it this way. She has a level which is above, of course, these players like Keys, who are phenomenal players, very deserving of a big title. But it's difficult, of course, to imagine Keys winning 10 big titles. And Sabalenka is not done,
No.
Probably she's going to win something more, maybe tomorrow as well. So, I kind of agree. I was not surprised to see, that notification, Sabalenka 2-0 Keys, when I woke up. But then, of course, I clicked, and the scoreline, of course, that it's a bit surprising, because, as good as Keys is. But yeah, as you mentioned, the win streak, at times, maybe if Keys, Sabalenka playing well, calm, and maybe Keys also felt that it was not her day. She started feeling, heavier, tired. And I think both things kind of combined made the match that way. For sure, I think it's a big confidence boost for Sabalenka, despite how good Keys looked, beating the opponent that didn't let you to win another Australian Open, getting this sort of revenge and doing it in an emphatic fashion at another big tournament like Indian Wells, even though not a slam. I think she enters, she will enter the court with the right mindset.
Yes, I think so too. I think that will give her a lot of confidence there, Aryna, and also this head-to-head that I was glad you touched on. And you also touched on that French Open match, so that's the only one that Mirra has won. But, I mean, it was pretty obvious to everyone watching, and I think she even mentioned it afterwards, Sabalenka was sick that day. I also spoke to her biomechanics coach, Macmillan, I think his surname is. I'm trying to remember. Do you know who I mean? The serve guy that Sabalenka has, Gavin. And we were talking about a million things regarding Aryna, but one thing that did come up was the disappointment, let's say, they had about that French Open quarterfinal, just because Aryna was, very, very close to winning it, and yet she was very sick, let's say. I mean, I know she was drinking a Coca-Cola at one point, but I think that was to give her some energy because she was just struggling big style physically that day. And,
Yeah,
I think even go on.
No, it's a disappointment also because you don't know, you have to a day more, 2 days more, and maybe you start to feel better. So if you somehow manage to win this one, then in the semifinal you can feel better, and suddenly maybe it's another final. So I mean, but of course, there are a lot of ifs in tennis still. All what Sabalenka won in terms of titles after that match, I think she can forget. Forget it.
Really interesting though, and this wasn't on top of my mind, is I knew they played each other a few times before. I remember the Madrid match because that was Andreeva's breakout tournament. I remember her beating Layla and maybe Lynette as well in that tournament, I think, in Madrid. And they played again a year later in Madrid. She got one more game there, but the two matches that happened this year actually had somehow slipped my mind before seeing this image right in front of us right now. So they've actually played each other already twice this year, outdoor, hard, straight sets wins for Sabalenka. I do know though that this is a very different hard court in Indian Wells or conditions compared to those two, right?
But curiously, both matches have been the easiest scoreline for Sabalenka in the entire tournament, both in Brisbane and Australian Open. So this is kind of curious, was for me a little bit because in both matches, I kind of thought this. She knows how good Andreeva is and is going to be. And I've seen in Sabalenka in both matches something different in her eyes comparing to, the matches that led her to that meeting in those tournaments. So I don't know if Sabalenka is kind of already feeling the rivalry, meaning that she knows how good Andreeva is and the fact that Andreeva is going to win a lot. And indeed, I mean, they're going to meet in a big match this time because, it's way bigger than, whichever match they've played, even the Roland Garros quarterfinal. It's, of course, very important, but this is a final. So there's something, something more even in terms of the rivalry. If I win, I get my hands on this trophy. It's also the second final for Sabalenka in Indian Wells, and she lost against Rybakina in 2023. So I don't know. In my mind, Sabalenka has still a slight edge in this one, even though I won't be surprised, considering how well Andreeva is playing, to see her winning. The slower court definitely can help Andreeva, that's for sure. But Sabalenka doesn't dislike to play here compared to other player with their game style, and this maybe also shows why, comparing to other, let's say, in tennis, maybe they call them ball bashers, but she is of course the most complete one, and her results and the ranking she has achieved, the slam she has won, also shows this. So I'm still giving Aryna a slight edge, even though I know Andreeva is going to be there at some point, another time for sure. But
I think what you're go, Barry, go. Okay.
No, I was just closing by just repeating that despite not being surprised at all if Andreeva wins, in my mind Sabalenka still has a slight edge.
I think with what you've just said, I pretty much agree. Maybe I'm going a little bit more on Sabalenka, something like 60-40. But I would also pretty much echo what Carson has said in the live chat. I think it's almost like she's taken a step forward, not just in the last 12 months. I'm talking about Mirra here, but actually in the last few weeks. It just feels like, I'm sure when it went into that semi-final in Brisbane and certainly the round of 16 in Australia, perhaps one of the reasons why they haven't stuck in my mind so much wasn't just the comfort of Sabalenka winning, but also my expectation of Sabalenka winning those two matches was very different, just because I feel very differently about Mirra Andreeva right now, even better than before.
Those matches were 70-30.
Right, exactly. Quicker court as well, quicker court as well, maybe. But she's good on, as she's shown over the last few weeks, she's good on a quick hard court as well. But yeah, definitely. It's just probably those were 70-30, Mario, and now it's 60-40. But as a result, just like you, I'm expecting, or probably that's too strong a word, but I'm thinking that this time tomorrow or a little bit later, Sabalenka will be lifting her first Indian Wells title. And because I've gone 60-40, that kind of means 3 sets, I guess, doesn't it? It's really about percentages, Mario, because actually, as you know, a 7-6, 7-6 can be a lot closer than a 3 set where the third set is 6-3 or 6-2 or whatever, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, so 60-40, but 60-40 does tend to sort of suggest I'm going Aryna in 3. Just before I come back to you, Mario, I see interesting that Jean has got Mirra in 3. That's a big one, but nice, good that you're sticking your head on your block there, Jean. And do let us know as well if you've got any predictions, because we will be wrapping this up any moment. Mario, any final reflections on the match tomorrow or some of these predictions?
Yeah, just saying that, of course, I'm expecting a tougher one for Aryna than the two they have played this year. You know, this is a case, you know, if Andreeva beats Sabalenka at the Australian Open, for me, I don't want to say a shock, but it would have been, you know, a big surprise for the tournament. This time, the feeling is different. You know, I give Sabalenka the slight edge because, you know, I'm trying to analyze and thinking what can happen tomorrow. But the feeling, of course, is very, very different for this match. And, you know, Andreeva for sure will have a shot. This is my idea. You know, I think she also expects from herself way better than in the past 2 meetings. So this is also an expectation of mine for the final. And that's also why I'm very, very interested to see it, which maybe was not that the case for the Australian Open and Brisbane, meaning that it was an interesting match, but not this interesting.
Yeah. Cool. So we have 2 watch-alongs to come up. We've got Carlos Alcaraz against Jack Draper later on tonight. I know Zach is going to be joining us for that one, and maybe myself or 1 or 2 others. And then tomorrow we have Sabalenka and Andreeva, and I'm very excited that Mario will be joining us for that one. Okay, Mario, big thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
And I'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye. Now I have to find the button. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.